I didn't have no confidence. I didn't feel like I could do it, and I just let everything go and found trouble.
I got in the fight in my mainstream school. I don't know, I suppose I just couldn't focus.
Out of mainstream education, these teenagers are now studying for GCSEs in an alternative provision school. We spoke to them anonymously.
I think it's because I used to mess around a lot, but that's because it was in big classes, and when you're in big classes with like 1 or 2 teachers, when you need help, there's no one there to help you like that.
You have to go to isolation and that. And then isolation is like you just stay in a room and it's like a box, and then you just stay there for the day.
Did you feel they were trying to stop you being excluded, or that they were trying to get you excluded?
I feel like they were trying to get me excluded. I don't know why, but it's just the vibe they were giving off. Like, it didn't feel like they were trying to help me in any way. It's just like you failed to follow the rules, so you have to go.
The number of pupils excluded permanently from school has been steadily rising, from just over 5,000 in 2010-11 to approaching 8,000 in 2018-19. Once excluded, 4% of pupils pass their GCSE maths and English, compared to 64% of pupils in mainstream schools. And 59% of permanently excluded pupils also end up cautioned or sentenced for an offence. The head teacher of this alternative provision school says it boils down to a lack of money to support those at risk of exclusion.
Half of the students within my alternative provision, if they were captured early enough with appropriate funding in mainstream and the intervention were done there, wouldn't need to have that sense of rejection by coming in and being excluded. The other half, appropriately funded for the more intense specialist provision, is also needed, and that holistic picture would serve all of the learners that I believe that currently are vulnerable for exclusion.
But even though they can only study a limited range of subjects now, for these pupils, exclusion has had benefits.
I would have probably preferred to be in mainstream just for the education aspect, but I don't really mind being here.
I prefer it here. I'm happy I ended up here and not in that mainstream school, because more one-on-one support, I find it so much better. I feel like I learn more.
Would you prefer it, though, if you could have had that support in your old school?
A lot more, because I could have been able to do 9 GCSEs and stuff like that, but because of lack of support, it really ended up as this.
Too many are falling through the gaps in our education system. These are children, remember, and once excluded, it is asking a lot of them to change the direction their lives have taken.
If you get sent to alternative provision, don't think that's like the end of the world, like you can't get anywhere, because you still can. Do you know what I mean? You just got to put in the hard work.
Well, Catherine joins me now. So, Catherine, as I said earlier, this was a wide-reaching report from England's former Children's Commissioner. What else did it say?
Well, one important and worrying finding was that black children are far more likely to be excluded than other ethnicities because they are perceived as older than their actual age. This adultification, as the report put it, means black children seem less vulnerable to their teachers, apparently, and therefore get less support. Another important fact it brought up is that the vast majority of exclusions happen in the run-up to GCSEs, and as the report puts it, it can surely be no coincidence that those GCSE results determine a school's position in league tables. However, Anne Longfield does say that mainstream schools are simply too short of money to do the right thing.
Teachers have told us how they feel between a rock and a hard place. They don't have the specialist support on hand to be able to offer that to children when it's needed, and they don't have the funds to be able to buy it themselves. So some have even said that the only way they can get support for that child is actually to exclude them. Now, that is a devastating place to be for both the school and the teachers, but also for that child.
So what solutions does today's report actually suggest?
Some pretty radical ones. Ban primary school exclusions from 2026, prevent schools who eject too many pupils from getting a good rating from Ofsted, measure well-being in those league tables as well as exam success, and to prevent those black children from being disproportionately excluded, much better teacher training. For its part, the government said today suspension and exclusion are necessary and essential, and there is targeted support for vulnerable pupils.
OK, Catherine, thank you.